All right. Good afternoon, everybody. It's Monday. It's time for some Master Motivation. My name is Jason Flame, and today I'm joined by the man with the most famous beard in the industry, Mr. Duane Spires.
Hey,
What's
thanks
up,
for having
sir?
me, Jason. Appreciate it, brother. I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks for being on the show, and looking forward to everybody joining us today. If you are watching right now live, feel free to drop in some comments. If you have any questions for Mr. Spires, we'll get to those. So let's kind of get started. I want to learn a little bit more about you, right? Because as I said in pre-interview, we've had very little personal interaction in person, lots of social media interaction, right? And so I'd love to hear your story, just kind of starting off from, maybe as a child, kind of working through
Yeah.
that and get to where we are now today. So tell us a little bit about your childhood, your parents, your family.
Awesome, brother. Well, thanks for asking, man. That's a great way to start. So a family originated from Ohio. Then we moved down here to Florida when I was, probably like preschool, rocking, like 4 years old, getting ready to go into elementary school.
Right.
And my mom and dad, who are still together, it's my mom and stepdad, but I call him dad. Great dude. They're still together, super hard workers, but we grew up in kind of like a lower income household. So we barely had money for like the new shoes. I was the kid that was in elementary school that had to stay back when all the other kids went on the field trip because mom didn't have $5. So that's kind of how I grew up. My dad's an electrician, and my mom, she babysat some kids and kind of was like a stay-at-home mom. So my brother and I always had love in the home. We had stability in the home, and it was enough to, keep the food on the plate. But it was also enough to where it created this insatiable hunger for more. And I just remember being a little kid and just like looking around and being like, wow, why did those kids get to have better cars and better houses? And why do they have a 2-story house with a pool and we don't? And just things like that. So the upbringing was fun. We still had a good time. We played outside a lot, super active. I remember, like 5th grade going into 6th grade, being bussed away like an hour away to go to school. And it was kind of a bizarre situation back in the day here in Tampa. And there was a lot of bullying that was happening, how it is today with middle school, right?
Mm-hmm.
So then all of a sudden it's like, all right, mom goes, you're in football, you're playing baseball. Have you ever thought about doing karate? She called it karate, like most parents call it. And I was like, yeah, that'd be cool. And I remember literally going into this Taekwondo studio, Master John Pravat. I went in, had that first Taekwondo class, and literally was hooked. I mean, hooked to the point where I'm like, I want to go every day. I'm going to quit football. I'm going to quit baseball. I'm not going to play any other team sports.
Mm-hmm.
Martial arts is my thing. And that started everything at this point. I mean, this is what ultimately led us to being here right now. And I remember doing Taekwondo. I switched over to Kuk Sul Wan. So not a lot of people know about Kuk Sul. It's a traditional Korean martial art. Got all the way up to first degree black belt in that art, and then had the opportunity to start cross training with people who were fighters and people who did Muay Thai, and they were competitive. And then Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu kind of made its way into Tampa, so started training in that. And I remember, having like towards the end of high school, getting ready to graduate, I got accepted into the University of South Florida on an academic scholarship. And of course, like every family that struggled, if you got into college, right, like that's the big thing. And my goal one day, I wanted to, be in criminology and like pursue, like be a prosecutor for the state of Florida and put the bad guys away forever. And I remember sitting in class one day, and the professor was like, you're going to start out as a prosecutor and make a little bit of money, and then you've got to pay for law school, and you've still got to do all this stuff. And I remember sitting there in that moment, and I was like, I don't know if this is for me. Something just turned me off by that conversation. I don't know if I'm in the right place. And I remember going, get this, a classified section. You remember classified sections in the newspaper?
Right.
So I open up the classified section, and I see an ad that's hiring for black belts. And basically this company would hire you as a black belt, and they would send you to recreation centers. And I was like, wow, this is really cool. I didn't know you could get paid to do martial arts. Like, this was a huge aha moment for me when I was like 18. And they sent me to all these rec centers out like super far away in the county. I mean, I'm talking like an hour drive to get to these rec centers. And I remember going into my first one and there was like 80 to 100 kids all waiting for class to start all at the same time in this big building. Right. And I'm going, all right, well, I'm used to being an instructor at my Cooksul school with like 10 kids. Now I've got 100. Okay, let's line up. Let's rock this. Right. And I remember teaching there for a few weeks. And then I realized really quickly that there's just a better way to run those classes and run those programs. And one of the things is you probably shouldn't teach 100 kids at one time. You should probably break that into multiple classes, right. Especially given the diversity of ages and skill level that was there from the previous instructor. So basically I was butting heads with that company. I was like, yeah, we should have multiple classes. And they're like, no, let's just be there, because they wanted to pay me less, essentially. Just teach one big class. So then I started thinking, well, what if I found my own rec centers? And then I did. And I started teaching closer to home. I had several rec centers. That spawned off into the idea of, well, let's go to other facilities that have kids. Well, what other facilities have kids all day? Daycares, childcare, churches, all these places where people already go. So long story short, I ended up taking a semester off of school for college. This is back in 1999. And I started my own karate business. They called me the karate guy. I didn't even have an official business name, didn't have insurance, didn't have a cell phone, didn't have business cards, didn't have any of that stuff. And long story short, I remember the very first time that I hosted this like enrollment night on a Friday, and I got my first 30 students, and I didn't even know what to charge. So get this, Jason, I charged $4 per kid per class. 30 kids enrolled. They're like, how much is the registration fee? I was like, $4. So I rolled out of there with a couple $100 in my pocket. And at that time of my life, that was literally the most money that I had ever had. I was still living at home at the time, right before I moved out. And my mom's like, where'd you get this money? And I was like, I have a karate program now. And she looked at me and she's like, that's not going to work. You need to stay in school. You need to graduate. This karate thing is not going to work out. And I was like, I promise it will, Mom. I promise. So that turned into 55 satellite programs in Florida. We were interviewed by Fox 13. We had over 2,000 students. And then, like all of us who were in business back in the mid to late 2000s, here comes that recession.
Right.
And going from a 7-figure business at that point to literally losing hundreds of kids a month and then losing hundreds of kids the following month. I think the worst month was like 180 that we lost in 1 month. The average month was 100, so we got down month after month after month down to about 400 to 500 students left, which still is insane. Like if you look at 400 to 500 students in the realm of school ownership now, that's a lot, but these were satellite programs. They're paying anywhere from 40 to 60 bucks a month, sometimes 80 bucks a month, depending on how many times I would teach there. And we had a team of about 8 to 10 instructors that were all pretty much full-time. They were traveling around teaching at all these different satellite programs. And one by one, I had to lay them off. And then the numbers kept dwindling. And before I knew it, all that I had left were a couple rec centers, a couple hundred kids, and one single unit that we had a lease on was 900 square feet. And I remember, and I've shared this from stage at a lot of our events, I remember going out, we lived on Clearwater Beach. I don't know if you're familiar with the Tampa Bay area, but it's a beautiful beach. We had a nice condo at the time. And I went out and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, we're about to lose it all. What is the answer? And I'm not going to get all religious and spiritual with you guys right now, but said a prayer and I got this message, summer camp, summer camp. And I'm like, that's the message, summer camp. So I go upstairs in the condo and I tell Lauren, my wife, I go, what are your thoughts if we do a summer camp? And she's like, okay, let's try it. So we blasted out an email. We had about 1,400 people on an email list that were in the local area that had either done karate with us or had done dance with us or cheerleading. We had a couple other sports that we were offering in the satellite programs. 1,400 email blast, 50 people exact wrote back and said, yeah, we would sign up. We do need a summer camp. And I was like, thank God. Oh my gosh, this is crazy. It's actually going to save us. And I mean, it got to the point where you're choosing between paying for the condo, paying for food, paying for the car, like basically juggling paying one person versus not the next. And it eliminated all that. And it not only saved our business, but that summer camp that year. And by the way, we had no idea what we were doing. I mean, dude, we had a room. I could teach karate. My wife could teach dance. We had some hula hoops. We had some Legos. We had
just going.
I mean, it was like, all right, kids, come on in and sit on the floor and eat your lunch, and we're going to do karate all day. And we had no idea what we were doing. But the kids had fun. They learned a lot of martial arts that summer and a lot of dance. And the parents, one after the other, they started saying things like, hey, you guys should do after school. You should do an after school program. And I'm going, cool, yeah. And then, 5 more people said it. Several more people said it after that. And then finally I'm like, hey, we've got this great idea. Maybe we should do after school. So then we started promoting it to the summer camp families. And I think like that first year, we had about 30 to 35 that signed up right away.
Mm-hmm.
And then the question was, oh crap, our credit is horrible because we weren't making timely payments because we lost all of our money. How do we get a van? How do we get a van for after school?
Right.
Driving down the road, and I see the crappiest, imagine this like white van, like the one that mom and dad tell you to stay away from.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't go near
the ones that we teach all our kids to watch out for.
Exactly. So imagine that van with some rust at the bottom and a couple dents on each side with a for sale sign, and it said $3,500. And I'm like, all right, we got $3,500. We can pull this off. And it was sitting in front of a church. So we go into the church. I talked to them about getting this van. We test drive it. It was this diesel engine. I remember, you could just hear that power. I didn't even know. It was like the first diesel I'd ever driven. You could hear the power. It like accelerated quickly. And the pastor was like, yeah, it's a pretty good van. I mean, it's ran down, but it's pretty good. And I was like, I'll take it. And I'll never forget, I'm signing the title in the church office, and the old lady, she's like, imagine the sweetest grandma with the white hair and like the little cardigan sweater. And she's probably got like a little pin right here with like an apple and a dog on it. She's like, good luck with that van. You're brave. And I was like, oh, thanks. And the funniest thing, man, as soon as we bought it, we slapped on a $400 paint job, which was actually good. I was surprised. We got the dents taken out, put on some new hubcaps, some air freshener, and it was in business, dude. And we started rocking it. And that turned from 1 van to 2 vans to 3 vans to 100 kids at that location, $500,000 a year. Let's open up the next location. Sold that out, 100 kids, $500,000 a year, back up to a 7-figure business. Now we got a system to teach.
Right.
That's where MAST came from, Martial Arts Success Team. That's where all of that came from.
Amazing.
Yeah,
Well, let me hit the pause button on that story before we go too much further. But you know what I love about when I get a chance to talk with people like yourself, and you talk to martial arts school owners and how we started. I mean, I kind of hear the same story a little bit over and over. I know my story is very similar to that. I opened my first school in 96, and believe it or not, that's how I started. I started at a rec center.
Nice.
And so when it was when I started training, that's my mom signed me up in martial arts to go to a rec center. Knew nothing about karate. She called it karate. I think she called my instructor by the last name because she couldn't pronounce the name. Anyway, and so when it was time for me to open my karate school, I said, well, hey, my instructor started a rec center. That's what I'm going to do. And for a period of time, like that was the thing, is a lot of people were doing these satellite schools,
but
and using
charge more than $4 a class.
You know what? Let me think back. So started the first class in 94. I'm pretty sure we were charging like maybe $29 a session, and a session was like 6 weeks. So maybe I was just a little bit above that, but we were all charging like way too little, right? Not even, and a good friend of mine started his martial arts career the same way. And literally, it's funny because you say $4. he started charging $4 a class. Like, I don't know if
Yeah.
that's a Florida thing, but um, so yeah, it's just interesting to hear a lot of the parallels. I actually grew up very. It was either all or nothing. My dad was in construction. My brother's an electrician by trade, and I knew I didn't want to do that.
Yeah.
That's a
Well,
tough
yeah,
business.
you see them work like 80 hours a week, and then it's just like, what's
Which
left?
is funny because like our brains really never turn off. We never stop working. I think we probably work just as much, just not as physical. But there were times where things were really good and times were really bad. I tell people often that my parents couldn't even really afford martial arts at a certain time, and it just martial arts did change my life because here I am every aspect of my life is interwoven with the martial arts, and it's created so many different opportunities. I want to get back to the martial arts in general for you. As a child, I know your mom threw you in the class,
Yes,
didn't know
thank
much
God.
about it. And so what do you remember training back, in the 90s? I mean, it's not
Oh,
like the
yeah.
blood and guts era of the 70s that we hear about sometimes, but talk about your training, talk about your instructors, some of the people that you
Yeah,
trained with.
yeah, please. So literally that first class, I remember learning a front stance and a low block. And
Mhm.
I thought that was the coolest thing ever. And it's so funny now that I'm going back. It's like I remember like the light brown carpet. I remember the couple hanging bags, and I also remember looking over and they had this thing on the wall that held X-ray film, and I was like, "What the heck is that?" I had no clue, going in there for the very first time. But that ended up being like the best thing ever to do spinning kicks on.
Mhm.
So train with John Pravat at his school, and what's crazy? So literally, so we're at a headquarters right now for Mast and Success Team, but right around, like looking out the window, right around the corner here, I mean, literally within walking distance is the actual shopping center of his school. It doesn't exist anymore, but
Mhm.
that's where it was. I mean, literally in walking distance. I can see it every time that I go out to my Jeep. Um, and then I trained with Master Young Chul Song for Kuk Sulwan. And he had a school here in Tampa that was just right around the corner as well. And what's crazy about that is I remember, and it's so silly, when you think back, like how you make decisions as a young kid. But
Mhm.
I thought that Kuk Sul was the coolest thing ever. Number one, they had black uniforms. I thought that was freaking awesome. I don't know why.
Mhm.
I thought it was cool. Number two, I walked in, and on the back wall was like this weapons rack, and they had spears and bow staffs and swords, and the swords are what sold the deal for me. I was like, 3-year black belt club contract. Mom, I have to do it. They've got swords. So trade with them, first degree black belt there. And for jujitsu, Ralph Garcia, he's a good friend of mine. He runs American Top Team Tampa, so he's out here. And then Brian Cleary, I don't know if anybody knows him, but he owns Freestyle Muay Thai, and they're actually based out of Tampa as well. So everything's kind of compacted within like a 10 to 15-minute drive.
Mhm. Mhm.
And, even on the way to like starting competition, right? So I remember going to a local competition. There were probably 4 kids in my division. I was a white belt. I won first in sparring, won first in forms. My little brother won first in sparring in his age group. We were hooked, man. I thought it was like the coolest thing ever. And I started doing like the local tournament scene. And I ended up doing really well in that kind of local scene. But then I'll never forget, man, the first opportunity to go to the US Open, which is in Orlando.
Right.
I'm thinking I'm going to roll in there. I'm going to get that big trophy. Dude, I got killed in the first match in a single elimination. We had a hotel room. We had all this stuff lined up. I was the first match and I lost the first match. We were
Oh
literally
man.
there for like 5 minutes. And my instructor came up and he's like, these kids are, a lot better here, aren't they? And I was like, yes, sir, they are. And as I was walking out, I met Bill Wallace for the very first time. So I've got this picture of him like hugging on to me like this, and I got braces on and goofy hair from the '90s, looking like a Wish.com version of Zach Morris. It's just that's what it was. But hey, I got the T-shirt and I had fun with it. And then Kuk Sulwan, you do a lot of competitions. I did pretty well in that circuit. But with Kuk Sul, you only competed against other schools in the organization, so it wasn't open. Yeah, I never fought MMA or anything like that. Did a couple jiu-jitsu tournaments, but that was about it on that side.
And so talk a little bit about, the progression in your training now. What are you training in now? What's your routine?
Yeah.
What's your favorite style to practice these days?
So I still love kickboxing. I will hit the bag. I don't go to classes anymore because I don't know if you've seen any of the videos, but I'm super competitive in the sport called USPSA, which is competitive pistol shooting. So it's like
Yes.
the ones where you like run around and you shoot the targets and you try not to fall or shoot anybody and try to keep it safe. So I've got a coach in that, training in that, shooting multiple times a week. And I'm at the gym. I was going 7 days a week, but everybody was yelling at me and they're like, dude, you're killing your body. So I toned it down to 5 days a week.
Mm-hmm.
So my regimen is very specific though. Starting at night, right? So right around 8 o'clock, I start getting ready for bed. I try to be in bed by 9:30 at the latest, up by 7, in the gym by about 7:20, here at the HQ before 9 so we can get started with the day. And then, my shooting training, it's either training or a match, depending on the weeknight.
Yeah, and we talked about scheduling and stuff, again, pre-interview and being having busy lives. I mean, having that morning and night routine, just having that, as you said before, a system, because
Yeah.
to fit everything in, if you're not on a regimented schedule, it's real easy to miss that workout or to miss that training. It was something that really intrigued me too, as I've been following you on social media. It was one of the first things that stood out, above and beyond, the martial arts and the success you have with your program. But I just loved watching the videos of you shooting.
Thanks,
I
man.
mean, it's pretty darn cool, and I have a lot of respect for that, because just like martial art, I know how much discipline it takes, A, to practice, and B, it's all about timing and hitting that draw, and getting on target quick. How did you get into that, and
Oh, I love it.
how did that start?
I love it. Yeah. So a couple years ago, actually almost 3 years ago to the date, and I'll share a funny story in a second about how I know that. I was just going to the gun range a lot and just
Mm-hmm.
practicing basic pistol transitions and reloads and just really kind of like a watered down, slower version of what I do now. And one of the range officers came up to me one day because he kept seeing me there pretty regularly. I would leave the house. I would stop by Walmart and pick up 200 or 300 rounds. Go to the gun range where I had a membership at, shoot all 200 or 300, and then come home. And I was just doing that a couple times a week. And so he pulls me to the side and he goes, "Hey man, in the next, they call them bays. So it's like
Mm-hmm.
a bunch of lanes are in one bay. Well, there was a bay next to us, right? That they had an action shooting course that was set up. And he goes, for this whole month, he's like, it's only $5. We'll let you run the course. And I was like, so you mean I get to move and shoot and like run around with a gun? He's like, yeah. Okay, here's my $5, man. Let's do this. And literally, man, I look back because I have some of those videos. I saved a lot of the very, very beginning videos. And I look back at them now and I'm like, man, what a progression that's happened. But that first time I got hooked, just like in martial arts, that very first low block in that front stance, hooked. So started shooting that scene, and then there was a couple guys that showed up and they had like fancy shirts on and they had like gear that had colors on it, and it just kind of looked like they knew what they were doing. They destroyed everybody. So I pulled one of the guys to the side and I said, "Hey man, you guys are really good. Other than this place, where else can I shoot?" So he's like, "Here's my number, Facebook message. Here's all the other ranges that offer, competitive shooting. This is how you get involved. Here's the link to, be a member and all this stuff." And literally from that point on, I mean, I've shot matches once or two matches a week on average for the past 3 years. And the story that I want to share with you that's really funny is my very first real match. My wife was pregnant at the time, getting close to giving birth. And the match was like 4.5 hours south in the Everglades of Florida. And it was at an abandoned prison that was purchased by a private company. So we're there. It's a 2-day match. You start the first night, you shoot at night, you sleep in the prison. No BS. You sleep in the prison in bunks, and then you wake up the next morning and you shoot the rest of the match. And you have to pay for it. You got to pay to be there at prison. So I shoot the first night, had a blast. I mean, literally, like the first stage, you start with a fully automatic 9mm rifle. That was the stage gun. And then you grab
Mhm.
your gun, and then you get in an ATV, and it's like you're driving by these targets and shooting. Totally crazy and awesome. Spend the night. I wake up the next morning. I get a phone call at like 7 o'clock from my wife. And I'm thinking she's just checking in on me. And she's like, hey, how long are you going to be there today? Why? She's like, well, I just feel a little weird. I'll just keep you in the loop. And I'm like, babe, do you want me to drive home right now? Like, are you having the baby? And she's like, nah, I'll be okay. So we get off the phone. I turn to my buddy who drove there with me. His name's Mason. He's actually part of our team here. And I was like, Mason, I think I'm going to drive back to Tampa. And he's like, really? I go, yeah, I think she's going to have the kid today. She's going to have Leo. So I get all my gear. As soon as I get back into my Jeep, I get the next phone call. Hey, water broke. I'm going to the hospital. How soon can you
Oh,
be? And I'm like, babe, I'm like 4.5 hours away in a Jeep. And if you have a Jeep with big tires, you can only go like 80 miles an hour, maybe 85. So I'm flooring it, literally pedal all the way down for 4.5 hours straight. I'm running through red lights. If there's cars that are parked, I'm like up in the median, going around them, going through a red light with my hazards on. I literally go and pull into the hospital. They told the hospital ahead of time what I was wearing because it was like full camo battle gear.
right.
I run in, show them my ID. They give me a sticker. I go into the room, the delivery room. Less than a minute later, here's your son.
Wow.
Freaking nailed it. Like crazy pictures. It was nuts. And after the dust settled and the baby was good, my son Leo, and this was on September 30th of that year. Then all of a sudden the nurses look over and they're like looking me up and down. They're like, "So, what do you do? What do you do for a living? Where'd you just come from?" And I was like, "It's a gun match, 4.5 hours away. My wife told me to go. She gave me permission."
Wow, what a story. What a story. That's crazy.
Yeah, man.
That's super cool. Well, easy to remember the day for sure then, right?
Super easy. Super easy. So
So,
September 29th of that year was my first technical real match.
all right. So, you brought up your wife, and I know your wife is a very big part of what you do and
It
part of your
is.
team. Talk about her a little bit and talk about your family.
Yeah, thanks, man. Thanks for asking. So we have three kiddos. Our oldest is 17. Her name's Giselle. Our middle child is 5.5. Her name is Carson. And then our youngest, Leo, he's almost 3 at this point. And man, Lauren and I, like, we met at a karaoke party. So I had a karaoke party at my condo, and she was a friend of a friend who showed up. And next thing I know, we're singing karaoke together. And I look down at the clock, and it's like 5 a.m. And she's like, yeah, it'd be fun to hang out again. And I go, yeah, it would. And then literally she calls me at like 8:30 that same morning. And she's like, hey, I'm coming by to pick you up for breakfast. Yeah. All right. And then we were together ever since, literally every day. So
Nice.
yeah, she's
Nice.
awesome, man. She has a dance background and a cheerleading background. She was a professional cheerleader with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers for 5 seasons. She was their captain. She was their Pro Bowl selection, I think in 012. That's not how you say it. 2012. And yeah, she's awesome, man. She's my rock, and she's one of those people who she's such a great coach. She's awesome with kids. She's awesome with the school owners that we work with, and she's probably the toughest chick I know, man. She's in the gym at 5 a.m. every single day, except for Saturday and Sunday. So she gets up at 4 a.m. every day.
Wow.
Yeah, she
That's
rocks.
that's a brutal routine. I mean, I'm waking up at 6 o'clock these days, and I'm thinking that I'm not a morning person, and that's
Yeah,
like that's before the sun comes up. That's a long day.
yeah,
So, going back to when you're talking about your childhood and talking about kind of growing up being maybe less fortunate is the way to say it. A little less money. You're looking at kids going, man, they get to go on the field trips. They got the cool shoes, the cool clothes. Um, all the things that happened while you were young. How does that change you as a father, and what does that do for you in regards to your family? Like,
yeah.
how did that change, like maybe your thought process and just kind of your values?
Gosh, that's such a great question. A lot. I'll give you a couple answers. The first thing is I firmly believe in giving children the opportunity to earn things. Um, I look back at my childhood and, when I wanted Air Jordans and my mom and dad told me, hey, we're poor, we can't afford that.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't take that as the answer's no, I'll never have them. I took that as, okay, well, how do I get the $113 to get those shoes that I want? They were 113 at the time. I'll never forget that number, man. And I remember, talking to my dad and I said, hey, can I borrow your lawnmower? And I want to ask our neighbors if I can mow their yards for $10 a week. And before I knew it, I had 6 or 7 yards every single week. And that summer I saved up like $1,200. I got my shoes. I saved the rest of the money. And so now when I'm parenting, I look back at times like that. I look back at the times where like there were other kids that I was friends with who got dirt bikes and they got go-karts and they had nicer houses. And that desire to want more fueled the drive that I have today. And because it fueled that drive for me and encouraged me to be the type of person that, I love reading. I'm sure all of your guests, including yourself, as entrepreneurs, we're learners, right? We love reading, going to events. We love expanding our horizons entrepreneurially. So I look at my own kids and I want to encourage them to create. I want to encourage them to want more. And like my son Leo, he's like, hey dad, can you buy me, this Captain Planet not Captain Planet. That was when we were kids. Like Captain America figurine or the Hulk figurine or whatever. And I'll say, hey buddy, your birthday's coming up. We'll get you something like that for your birthday. But maybe you can help me out with some cleaning around the house. Maybe you can help daddy wash his Jeep and I'll give you a couple dollars and then we'll put that in your bank and we'll save it and then you can buy it. And he's like, yeah. And I don't know if he knows what that means yet.
Right.
But I like to believe that he's eventually going to know what that means. And he's eventually going to, take those lessons that he's learning as young as age 3 right now and grow with that. My 5-year-old Carson, man, she's talking about, her cleaning business, right? Like she'll come in and she'll be like, can I clean your room for $1? I was like, all right, for $1, for $1. But she already talks about her business and she's like, right. Dad, you owe my money or you owe money to my business. It's not about her. It's about her business. So I like to believe that definitely shaped my life. And the other thing I would say is, Jason's like much like yourself, like your dad being a super hard worker. I didn't get the chance to see him a lot. When you are in the construction industry or a subcontractor like an electrician like my dad was, you're working with your hands. So that means you're not at the house. You're not on a computer at the house. I have the luxury to be able to work from home sometimes. I can work from my phone. I don't have to be somewhere like he did. So for me, I value time with the kiddos. I value time with my wife so much. I mean, literally to the point where I schedule date nights. I schedule times that I'm going to take them to the park. And once it's on the schedule, once it's on that calendar, it happens. It's sacred at that point.
Right. No, I agree. It's super important. It's always been, I think since my wife and I have been dating and together for quite a while. And it was always important to us that we made time for each other. Even when we had kids, it was all about, date night. We still try to plan lunches. It's a little harder than it has been in the past because now she's just as busy doing her thing. So yeah, like you said, it's got to be on the schedule because if it's not on the schedule, it's not going to just fit in. And, going back to talking about the kids, earning and having that work ethic. I was always, I watched my dad work. My brothers and I all, somehow got that same work ethic. We're just ready to work at anytime, no matter what we're doing, whether it's our business or we're just helping someone else. I mean, there was never a fear of working with our hands or being physical. And, when I had kids, I have to admit, my wife and I spoil them, right? And because I was less fortunate, so I wanted my kids to have the things that I didn't have. And I always worried that they would be so spoiled that they wouldn't understand the work ethic. And I'm proud to say now my daughter is 19, my son is 16. When we opened the restaurant, they were both super eager to go to work. You know, they
Nice,
want
man.
my my son chose, like, listen to this. My son chose washing dishes over teaching martial arts, and he could have made
Nothing
probably
wrong
twice as
with that.
much.
That's still pretty cool.
I mean, I just think, like, hey, he just wants to work hard, and he kind of wants to have his own thing. I know that
Yeah.
sometimes kids, they just want to have their own thing. So
Oh,
anyway, and
same
and,
with
and
our
my
oldest. Yeah.
yeah,
Same.
and so my daughter in high school, this was hilarious. Talk about not knowing if they would kind of catch on to that entrepreneurial spirit. My daughter would literally wear clothes like, I don't know, two or three times, and then she'd take them to school, and she would like set up a, I don't know if she set up a display or how she did, but she would go sell her clothes at school
Oh, wow.
in high school. And I'm like, what are you doing? She's like, I just thought I mean, I don't wear them anymore, so I'll sell them and I'll make money. And now, like, and I never saved as a kid. Terrible at that. My parents were not very good at it, so I
Yeah.
didn't learn that. And my daughter is, I mean, working like crazy, going to school full time, and saving just a ton of money. So it's just, my point is that you want them to have these things, and you want to do things a certain way, and you don't know if they're really catching it, and
Right.
they do, right? And they
They're
do.
watching. Yeah, man. They're
Always,
watching.
always. So, hey, share with us a little bit more about your school or schools, and how you built Mast. You started to talk about it a little bit, and how that transpired.
Yeah, absolutely. So the official business that we had up until 2017 is called Extreme Youth Sports, and then we sold our Tampa location. So the Tampa location is still in operation, and then there's a Lake Mary location that's outside of Orlando that's still in operation. So they're still crushing it, and they're actively involved with Mast. Coming to our events and still, leaning in and providing some mentorship and even
Mm-hmm.
reaching out to some of our other current members and helping them out too, which is really cool because that's kind of the prototype model. um, right now with Mass, like this is full time. This is what we do, boots on the ground. We're in almost 500 territories right now across the country. And here at the headquarters at any given time, we have 12 full-time people. So, media director, graphic designer, other coaches, sales team, accountability coach, social media. I mean, just all kinds of stuff that we're doing. So this is like full on, full support. I would say pretty much, like, I can't officially say 24/7 because we do sleep, but there's
Mm-hmm.
somebody in the group 24/7 that's answering questions and providing that leadership and guidance.
And when or where or how did you see this need for these schools to get help from you?
Man, so there were two pivotal moments that occurred. I remember I went to an event with Kyoshi Fred De Palma. He
Mm-hmm.
had an event here in Clearwater, Florida, and I was there as an attendee. And there was an opportunity to, it was kind of like an open floor discussion. So
Mm-hmm.
somebody would ask a question, and then pretty much like you could be on the panel and give an answer, or you could just be in the audience and give an answer. And at that time, I was in the audience, and I remember giving an answer to a question and providing a lot of details on, we did this, we did that, it works, this is what you're going to enroll, this is how much money you're going to make. And then once that session was done, I got mobbed in the hallway. I literally got surrounded by people in the hallway. They're like, "Oh, do you do coaching? Do you do this? Do you do that? Let's get in contact on Facebook." And out of respect to Fred, I was like, "Oh no, I don't do any coaching," and I hadn't officially launched the company yet. We hadn't started doing the summer camp and after school coaching just yet, but we were ready to start. And it was at that moment where I was like, "Man, I have a lot to provide. I feel very confident about helping school owners grow."
Mm-hmm.
And there was one other event that I was at where there was a speaker who got on stage, and she was talking about summer camp and after school. And their program was like 30 kids, 30, maybe 40 kids total. And we already had hundreds of kids. And I'm hearing her share information on stage. And in my mind, I'm going, that's not the right way to do it. That's
Mm-hmm.
also not the right way to do it. I would never do what she just said. We tried that and it doesn't work. And it was at that moment where everybody's treating her like an expert, and they're looking and they're getting advice from her. And I'm very blunt. She didn't know what she was doing. And she was guiding people the wrong direction compared to what we had already created and had success with. And it was right in that moment where I was like, Lauren, it's time to launch. We got to do this. It's time to go.
Mm-hmm.
And 2015, actually late 2014, early 2015, the first, handful of members started. And it was weird too, because you get this imposter syndrome. You're like, you're confident that you know what you're doing, and you're like, yeah, we've had great success. Like, I can show my success. Will it work for other people? And I'm getting like that first dozen members and just praying and hoping that like this is going to work in Maine, this is going to work in California, this is going to work in Georgia. And one by one, they started having record-breaking months. They started getting more enrollments. They started launching that after-school program in summer camp. And then it hit me, and I was like, this is crazy. This is actually working. And then flash forward, it was like, now we're at 50 members. Now we're at 100 members. Now we're at 200, 300, 400. We stopped tracking right around the $250 million benchmark. So this was pre-COVID. This was like the system collectively for everybody had helped generate $250 million. So at this point now, I would say easily 300 million based on the numbers that we have. But yeah, man, it was absolutely amazing. And this has been such an incredible journey, because we go back last year to COVID when there was so much uncertainty and so many people, like you would have all these, evening students canceling, pausing, freezing their membership, insert whatever scary word you want to use. And then everybody's rushing to go do virtual learning on Zoom and have these virtual classes, which still did well. And what we discovered across the country, one after the other, our members were getting approved to stay open for kind of an extended summer camp / e-learning. They were getting local and county approval, like state and county approval, to stay open as an essential service.
Right.
And then before we knew it, people were like jumping in the group going, dude, we just had the best June that we've ever had. And I was like, ever? They're like, ever. We had the best July we ever had, ever. Best August. And then that just kept rebounding. And one of the things that we were telling everybody is that if there are other schools that are getting hit hard with COVID and they're shutting down, or they're, pulling their advertising down, they're not putting themselves out there, they're playing a smaller game out of fear, I go, you guys are going to be the biggest and the brightest that are still standing. And that's exactly what happened. You had the YMCAs that pulled their programs down. The parks and rec centers pulled their programs down. There were some like smaller martial arts schools in the local areas that were closing down. And sure enough, all of those kids started migrating towards our members' schools, and it left them standing stronger than ever. And I mean, the fortitude that they have as an owner to go through that is so impressive to us. I mean, the sleepless nights, like there would be people last year that would send us messages, and it would always happen between like 10 p.m. and 2 a.m. Those were when the crazy Facebook messages would come in. It would be like, I don't know what to do, man. I'm beat up. I'm thinking about giving up. I'm thinking about quitting. And there were times every single week that myself and Lauren, after the kids were in bed, we would jump on the phone with those coaching members and just let them vent, and then guide them back to that message that you guys are going to be the last one standing. Dude, we doubled in size since 2020.
Well, it comes down to mindset and attitude. Having a winner's mindset, having a winner's attitude. I think it's just kind of the way that we were born. Like you said when you were a kid, like I can't afford these $113 shoes. Well, how am I going to afford it? What do I need to do?
No, that meant how, right? Like,
right.
How
well, and yeah, I mean, I can just see it in times in our business that, well, okay, we're here and we used to be there. So what do we need to do to get back to that? I mean, you just change a little bit of mindset, maybe pivot, the key word that word is thrown out like a million times, but, pivot towards something else, and find your strength. So, it's funny you brought this up, and I just call it out that you were listening to a speaker that had no idea what they're talking about.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how frustrating it is having done time as a consultant and help people in different areas of their life, specifically in the martial arts business. How many people are willing to call themselves a guru, an expert, a this, a that, it's almost become cliche, especially in our industry. I mean, talk about an industry that is so focused on title,
Right.
being master this or master that, grandmaster, whatever,
Yeah.
right? I mean, at the end of the day, and you can attest to this, the more you help people,
Yep.
the more you find yourself on the you know the gain, right? I mean,
Absolutely.
the giver's gain mentality is something that is very underrated, but I think that so many out there are preying on the schools that need help, and I mean, I'm not really calling out anybody specifically per se, but I mean, I just see it, and it's frustrating because
It is.
you see schools, you see schools that, I mean, quite honestly, teach crap
Yep.
martial arts, just
Yep.
teach garbage, right? I mean, it's I have a friend who sends me McDojo videos all the time. I'm like, please stop sending me that, because those people literally get other people killed. I mean, having trained
Yeah.
in Krav Maga for the last 5 years, it's just terrible to watch what is taught sometimes, and you want to kind of shake them a little bit and just be like, wake up. But it's really tough to get outside that bubble, especially if you've been in it for a long time. So what do you say to school owners that have been stuck in that bubble
Yeah.
and not really willing to take a step outside the
Man,
comfort zone? I mean, what do you say to them?
I've got some simple advice for them. So if you're working with, a coach or a consultant or an agency, let's say somebody's going to, make your website or make your Facebook ads or Google ads or whatever, you obviously want to expect that they're going to say they are the best at what they do, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
everybody, especially in this industry, is the best at what they do.
Mm-hmm.
Cool. Prove it. Prove it. Let us hear from a couple dozen real, actual customers or clients of yours. Let's talk on the phone. So I always tell people, I go, we're an open book. You want to talk to any of our members, reach out and talk to any of them. We are extremely transparent, whether it's on my personal Facebook page. I'm always, sharing screenshots of people's results. You go to our free group, Martial Arts Success Team, literally videos and testimonials and all kinds of stuff, literally hundreds that you can find on your first glance.
Mm-hmm.
Reach out and chat with them. They're linked in the description. They're linked in the bio. They're linked in the videos. So don't just take somebody's word that they're good. Look for that real proof. One thing that drives me nuts, and we're very transparent about this, is we don't have any sponsors. Nobody comes on and sponsors us. Nobody gives us money as a sponsor. So when I look at like the CRM companies that are out there, the website companies, all these places, like we give unbiased, legitimate feedback from our experience, as well as literally hundreds of the school owners that we work with on a daily basis. So, you know what pisses me off? When Facebook agencies prey on the fact that a school owner, is operating with emotional fear. Like they're afraid. They're afraid that they're not going to be able to use Facebook ads correctly. So now they have to hire this Facebook ad agency, who some of them are not good. There's some really good people out there, and some are not good. And some they will look that person in the face, promise them everything. We're going to get new enrollments. You're going to get all these leads and make all this money. They will not deliver any of that. And then 3-4 months later, of that member paying them $500 to $600 a month, then the member's like, well, it's just not going to work. That's not okay. You just lost $2,000. I'm tired of seeing that. So our members come to us. If they ask us, like, what's the best CRM, what's the best website, we'll tell them. We'll be
Mm-hmm.
completely blunt, and we'll also tell them who to avoid based on real feedback that we get from real school owners. So, yeah, I hope that answered your question.
It does. It does. I mean, and I think it opens up the conversation.
Yeah, for sure.
For people to have.
And if you're legitimate, if you operate your business out of integrity and honesty, then you got nothing to hide.
Right. Totally agree. Totally agree. So, people might say that, your business focuses on the after school programs and the summer camp, and that martial arts may be in the background.
Mhm.
How do you respond to that?
Yeah, I would say that's accurate. I would say that's very accurate. So the philosophy that we have is that We are helping people sell a necessity service instead of a luxury service. So a luxury service, martial arts, dance, cheerleading, all these other sports that that you would enroll in the evenings in.
Mm-hmm.
The child has to want to do it. They have to have the budget to do it, and they have to have the schedule to support it. Okay, that's great. Or let's include martial arts, cheerleading, dance, all these other sports, like a lot of our members do parkour and all these other things. Let's include that into an after school program that has discipline, that teaches character development. They're saying yes, sir, and yes, ma'am. It's extremely structured. And the parents already have a budget for it. They already are either going to sign up with you, or they're going to go down the street to an after school program at the elementary school, the YMCA, a childcare facility where they're literally just going to babysit those kids. That's boring. So after school is awesome. Summer camp is awesome. The martial arts component of what we teach, because we work with so many school owners across the country and they all have different styles and systems and belt requirements and all this, we give them the freedom and the leeway to keep that, integrity of what they already teach. We guide them on how to get more students at night, because that is a big part of our system. But first and foremost, when you sign up with MAST, I want to see you have a 6 or 7 figure after school program in summer camp, because I know that's going to take the stress off. That's going to help you pay the bills. That's going to put money in your bank and create wealth. And now you're getting all of these new students who fall in love with martial arts. And guess what they want to do? Dual enroll at night. They want to sign up for those evening classes to get more of it. And we see a lot of dual enrollments as well. So martial arts wise, their skills go up because they're training so long.
Right. Yeah. And what do you say to the school owner that has a smaller school, small location, not they're a one-man show.
Yeah.
And they're like, dude, I can't work 12, 14 hours a day. I can't afford to hire somebody. My building's not big enough.
Yes. So here's what I'll say to that. If you have at least 1,000 square feet, you're in a good enough space. If you have at least 2 elementary schools that are about 10 to 12 minutes away, we don't really like to go further than that. I mean, we've seen some people go as far as like 15 minutes out to go pick up kids, but we don't recommend it. So about 10 to 12 minutes away, at least 2 schools, you're golden. For the school owner who said, I mean, we've got people right now, Jason, this is crazy. We've got the Pouchard family. I've mentioned their names many times on other podcasts. We've got, Will Schneider. He's got 5 locations out in middle of nowhere, Kentucky. The Pouchard family's in middle of nowhere, Maine. The Vierneses are up in Maine as well. Like, we're talking like really small towns, 5,000 people or less, 6,000 people in these tiny towns, and they're crushing it. And you can literally get all the kids in your whole town. So this works in small towns. This works in big towns. For the people that say, well, I don't have the money to like hire other people, I don't have the money to get a van yet, it's very simple. The concept of pre-enrollment. So we've done the math. The average weekly revenue from a single student is between $75 and $85 a week on average for after school. Of course, if you're in parts of California or Virginia or New York, you've got your own little bubble of wealth. But everybody else, $75 to $85 a week, that's a competitive rate. So now you're looking at least $300 a month. You get 6 to 7 kids. Let's say you bring in $2,100 a month with 7 kids at $75 a week. I'm doing the math quick for you guys. You'll be able to pay the van payment, pay the insurance payment, pay the gas for that van, and you'll have enough money left over to cover the entire month's salary of a part-time coach. 6 to 7 kids. And here's the truth. When you get 6 to 7 kids from one elementary school, it's easy to double and triple that. We teach that in our system. So everything else beyond that is net profit right back in your pocket. And then you have the coach, you have the van, and it's already being paid for by the revenue that you pre-enrolled. So I wouldn't go buy vans unless you had kids pre-enrolled. But that's a big part of what we teach. We teach the people how to pre-enroll kids to help fund their entire expansion so they never have to come out of pocket.
Right.
And you better believe the game is not to have them work any more hours than they're already working at all. The game is to actually create freedom, time freedom, financial freedom.
And I'm going to ask one last question, just regarding the business. In the martial arts world, we would say if you could get 1% of your population to train in your school, you're doing pretty good. What is it when you're doing after school and summer camp? What's that number?
I like to look at the metric of how many kids you have per elementary school. So if
Okay.
you have, let's use the smallest example. Like if somebody reaches out to us and they say, "Hey, we're interested in your program, we want to join," we're literally going to vet them to see, again, do they have 1,000 square feet? If not, it's going to be hard to work with them. Do they have at least 2 elementary schools? If they only have one, we're not going to work with them. All right. We'll give them a lot of access to our free stuff. They can come to our events, but we're not going to have a coaching relationship with them, because our goal as coaches right now is to help them enroll 30 to 50 kids in their after school program in the first year. That's the average that we see. Now, with that being said, we want to ensure their success, right? So we want people to come on board that are ready to jump in with 2 feet. And when they do that, they get the work done, they watch the modules, they're going to get great results. I mean, we're looking at literally the average revenue of a single student per year is about 5,000 or more. They go from after school to summer camp, after school to summer camp. They stay in your program for at least, on average, 3+ years.
All right, good information. Good information. And you know what? We will get a lot of martial artists, school owners maybe watching this video, but we may have just the casual person watching this, maybe not involved in the martial arts industry. So this next question
Yeah.
would be, you started in a position where things were tight, things were real tight, right? I mean, to where you're making decisions on paying certain bills. And I can imagine that there are many people, especially, over the past 18 months with challenges, just with COVID and everything else, not going to work, getting laid off, whatever, when things get tight. Um, and then here you are doing phenomenally well. How do you personally deal with that mental game of going from nothing, let's say, to a lot,
Yeah.
right? How
Yeah.
does that play with your mental? Do you have the feeling that at any given time you could lose everything and be right back where you started?
Ooh, that always exists. So in short, my short answer, yes, that always exists. I have this internal flame that's like, don't stop until you've created so much wealth that the residual interest from that wealth can literally pay for everything indefinitely. So like that kind of internal wealth game for us personally is to get to that level where the investments are literally covering everything. So yeah, losing everything, it's part of that mindset, part of that drive that I think I've always had since I was a little kid. Um, you know, at the end of the day, I believe that hard work pays off. I believe that
Mm-hmm.
relationships pay off. We tell this to our members that when you make relationships your number one priority and you serve at the highest level and you do it with honesty and integrity, that people are going to stay. They might pause their membership. They might freeze for just a little bit, but play the long game. They're going to come back. Don't be that school owner that threatens people with lawsuits. Don't be the school owner that sends people to collections. And I know right now some people that are watching this are like, oh, I disagree. You got to get paid what you're supposed to get paid and contracts and blah, blah, blah. I get it. But also it's a numbers game. There's so many people in your community that need your services. And if you start getting a bad reputation, because people talk, they go to little Johnny's birthday party and the parents hang out and they talk. I would much rather see everybody that's watching this right now be known as like that gracious, giving martial arts school and that organization that people want to keep coming back to forever. Like, you've heard the stories of, I used to train there and now my son trains there and my grandkids train there. Like,
Mm-hmm.
be that school, be that legacy in your community. That's what I want to see. But man, with COVID and everything, I think the biggest aha moment at this point is just don't give up. We teach that to our martial arts students, right? Like, don't give up, whether it's bullying, whether it's, taking a test in math, just don't give up and
Right.
look at where you're going to be. You'll look back and go, yeah, my hard work paid off. So, man, I see a bright future. I see a future especially over the next couple months, that's going to get a little bit harder before it gets easier again, especially with this next variant that's steamrolling the country right now. But what I can say with certainty, based on what we experienced all last year in 2020, is that we will prevail. We will win.
I agree with you. And you know what? The thing that sticks out to me most, the thing that I love that you said, is that when you put the relationships first,
Yeah.
and it's so important to me in our community that we have that relationship with the students, we have the relationship with the families, we have the relationship with the schools, the
Yes.
community as a whole, because like you said, you want to have that legacy of, I mean, man, I can't tell you, and I'm not even 47 years old yet, but to have students that are now, they were students as kids, now bringing their kids to
Yeah.
me, and I think in two cases I have grandkids that have come to me. That blows my mind. I started teaching out here in 1994, and here we are in 2021. I watch these kids grow up. I watch these families grow, and to have been there, I say, I remember when so and so was born, or I remember when so and so got married, and the relationship over time is, for me, one of the most unbelievable parts about what I get to
Seriously.
do.
That stuff
I mean,
chokes me up, man, when I think about it. I see, and with Facebook and social media specifically, you get to see them grow up and you get to see their personal lives and when they get married and all that stuff. And you look at that and you're just like, wow, what a
yeah,
butterfly effect. Like, what a ripple effect of positivity that came from martial arts.
I
Like,
love it.
that's the coolest thing ever.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, today in Moore Park, it's the first day of school, so I'm seeing all my kids' first day of school pictures, and
Yep.
it's one of my favorite days of the year when I get to see all these kids super happy, especially after what we've gone through. They actually
Yeah.
get to go back to school. It's super cool. So I really appreciate hearing that from you, and I love what you're doing.
Thank
I'll
you.
continue to follow you and watch you, and what I'd like to do is just give you this last minute. I call it the master minute. If
Yeah.
you could just speak to the audience that's watching now and give them your inspirational.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to base this off of 2020, right? Um, we coach a lot of people. Like I said before, 500 territories. We're almost in 500 right now. There were so many times where we had to remind school owners that what we're experiencing is just a small blip on the radar of success of what we've got going on in the future. We're going to get through this. We're going to prevail. We will win. Stay in there. And it's like such cliche surface level words sometimes, but literally just not giving up is what will
Mm-hmm.
take you to that next level. And I also want to encourage all of you to protect the castle. Don't let toxic people in your life. You got to be careful about watching the news, scrolling mindlessly on Facebook and Instagram. You have to block out the negativity, block out the toxicity, and really protect what you're digesting. It's like we watch what we eat. We also need to watch and protect what we listen to and what we consume digitally. And that is the difference that kept us going. There was a point last year where we sent a video to all of our members and we said, we're in this together. No one's quitting. If you can only afford to pay us $100 a month instead of the full price, we don't care. If you can only pay us $10 a month, we don't care. We're in this together. And we treated every single relationship the same, regardless of their investment level, regardless of what they could afford to pay us when everything got bad in 2020, and everybody rose back together through the ashes and climbed out. And, you look back at that and it's like, what was that one thing? What was that one thing that kept everybody together? Honestly, positive mindset.
Mm-hmm.
We refused to allow complaining. We refused to allow venting. We refused to allow, negative questions being posted in our groups. We maintained and monitored the integrity of that group 24/7 last year. We kept everything positive and we said, look, we're going to succeed. And then we rebounded back up. So my best advice, stay positive. We teach this in martial arts, and do that in your personal life. Teach that to your team, teach that to your students, and you guys will all go to that next level.
I love it. I couldn't agree more with the positive mindset, because you're right. We do watch what we eat. We do go to the gym and train.
Yep.
But sometimes we do allow what we see on Facebook, Instagram, social media in general. We're watching the news, and man, that could affect your entire day and
Yeah.
your mindset rather than, I really focus on trying to turn some of that off because it could be a challenge for sure. Because then you start allowing that fear, that worry, or that
Mhm.
anxiety set in, and it just trickles on down to
Yeah.
everybody
So
around you. So
you show up as a leader with fear and anxiety. How are you going to be a powerful, evolved leader if you are operating out of fear and anxiety and worry and scarcity? You're not going to show up
right.
effective. So it's like we have to switch that. We have to stay positive.
Yes, sir. Totally agree. Well, let's keep putting that out there
Yeah,
because
man.
it's how this video series came to play. As a matter of fact, I didn't even mention it at the beginning, but throughout 2020, I'd be scrolling on social media and I'm like, lots of doom and gloom, and that just wasn't, honestly, it just wasn't fun. I just didn't want to read it anymore. I wanted to take a break, and then I started posting, just copying motivational quotes, just grabbing images here and there, and then it hit me because I was looking at 2021 and thinking, what am I going to do this year? What am I going to do to grow? What am I going to do to make a difference, right? More than what I'm already doing. And I said, I have had so many people that have inspired me and motivated me and taught me to have the right discipline. Why don't I share those stories with everybody else? That's how the Master Motivation video series came to be. And so I appreciate you being a part of it.
Thank you, sir.
I hope that everybody that watches this now or watches it later on a replay, it'll live on my Facebook page as well as my YouTube channel. So go and check it out. And I look forward to maybe one of these days catching up in person and having another conversation.
I would love that. And I appreciate you having me on today's episode. And I look forward to connecting with you again, man.
All right. Well, hey guys, thanks again, and hope everybody has a great day. Do us a favor and share the video around, and we'll catch up with you next week. We have a new guest, and I also have Master Bill Clark coming up, so I'm super excited about having him as a guest. Alan Belcher is coming up. He just won a big fight, so I can't wait to talk about that. And we'll see who else is next. So tune in, guys, and make it a great week. Let's go out and make a difference. All right, guys, take care. See you, Mr. Spires.
Take care, brother.
All right. Bye bye.